Today, we're diving into a story about a procrastination habit that was so deeply ingrained it felt totally unbreakable. But then, one single, simple rule changed everything. Let's get into it. You know that feeling, right? When you have something you need to do and the thought of it is just so big, so overwhelming that you spend hours, maybe even days, just worrying about it. Honestly, probably way more time than it would take to just do the thing. Well, that exact feeling pretty much defined one person's life for years. This is Buck's story. And I have a feeling that, for a lot of us, it's going to sound pretty familiar. To really get how he broke the habit, we first have to understand the trap he was stuck in. It was this relentless procrastination cycle, and it was fueled by a really potent mix of worry and guilt. For Buck, this thing was a vicious loop. It all started with worrying about his homework. That worry would get so intense that he'd just avoid the task completely. But of course, avoiding it just led to this crushing guilt. And what did that guilt do? Well, it just fed right back into the worry for the next assignment. It was an absolutely endless, exhausting cycle that started way back in elementary school and just followed him for years. And, this was not just some phase he was going through. This was a lifelong struggle that shadowed him from childhood all the way into his college years. And when you look at the timeline, the depth of this issue is just wow. His struggles started way back in the first grade. Back in the 60s, they labeled him dyslexic. The source we're looking at notes that by today's standards, he would probably be diagnosed with ADHD. And get this, by the time this story really kicks off, he's in college, his fourth college. That alone tells you just how much he was struggling. But at that fourth college, something finally clicked. He met a counselor who had a brand new idea, a really radical shift away from asking why he procrastinated, and instead focusing on what he could actually do about it. And the difference in the two approaches was like night and day. See, his old counselor had tried to dig really deep into his past, his relationship with his parents, and the result? It didn't help at all. In fact, it might have even made things worse. But then he meets Dr. Jacob Herring, who suggested something completely different, a super simple change in his behavior. And that one little suggestion, it opened up a whole new path forward. So what was this big revolutionary idea? It was something called the 2-hour rule, a beautifully simple prescription for what felt like a deeply complex problem. Okay, so here's the strategy. Super simple. Step 1, go to the library 5 days a week. Step 2, work for exactly 2 hours, no more, no less. The time was fixed. Step 3, while you're there, work on anything related to your classes. It didn't matter what, the whole point was just to start. And then, here's the magic part, step 4, once those 2 hours were done, he was free to enjoy the rest of his week, completely, 100% guilt-free. So the deal was simple, a commitment to just 10 hours of focused work a week. But the real magic wasn't the hours, it was the reward. Hitting that 10-hour mark gave him permission to finally let go of that guilt that had been chasing him his entire life. So he had this new game plan. But what actually happened when he put it into practice? Well, the result was nothing short of an instant transformation. And frankly, it was pretty surprising. So it's the question we're all thinking, right? After all those years of struggle, could a rule this simple really make a difference? Did it work? Oh, it didn't just work. It was a complete game changer. The source material puts it this way. Almost instantly, he became an A student. Just let that sink in. Decades of struggle, 4 different colleges, and this one simple system completely flipped the script, basically overnight. So why was this so incredibly effective? Well, psychologically, it hit all the right notes. First, it completely shattered that cycle of avoidance. Just by showing up, he was forced to start. And that meant that starting, the thing that used to feel impossible, wasn't the hardest part anymore. And here's the best part. Once he got going, once he was in the zone, he often found himself working longer than 2 hours. Not because he had to, but because he was actually engaged and wanted to. Buck's story is just incredible. But its real power, I think, is what it means for the rest of us. So the big question becomes, could this work for you? How do we take the lesson from his story and apply it to our own lives? Because when you boil it down, the story isn't really about a 2-hour study roll. It's about finding a simple, non-negotiable system that just takes away the anxiety of getting started. It's about trading all that worry for actual action. So we'll leave you with this question to chew on. What's the one simple rule that could change everything for you?